Hey everyone, welcome to the Clydesdale CrossFitter and Friends. My name is Scott Schweitzer. I am the Clydesdale CrossFitter, and we are on day 4 trillion of the quarantine. And so with me, I have Amy.
Hey.
Kat.
Hi there.
And Charlie.
Hola.
And because of that day trillion of the quarantine, we have had a load of guests. And so we are bringing you another midweek release. And this week it is going to be Brooke Haas. So Monday we released Dex Hopkins, and Brooke Haas is actually his teammate on the ROMWOD Meat Squad. And what's very interesting about this is we talked to her right before CrossFit kind of came out with the announcement of what was going to happen with the games, and we'll kind of talk about that after the interview. But I reached out to her 2 days ago and asked her what she was going to do because she finished in the top 20 in the Open, and she was on a team that qualified for the games. And she told me in a message that she is accepting her invite as an individual athlete, and she's hoping to do both that and the Mayhem Madness event that is happening for teams.
Very cool.
So we want to preface this interview by letting you know that we did have some internet issues down in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. And so there is some points where Brooke cuts out a little bit, but the content's really good. She's really a fun person, and we wanted to bring you her interview anyway. So hopefully you can bear with us through those internet issues, as are typical with a lot of Zoom calls. And we'll talk to you after that interview. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Good. Awesome.
So where are you located now?
I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. Jacksonville Beach.
All right, yeah.
Northeast Florida.
Yeah, I used to live in Tallahassee.
Oh, okay.
And my cousin was stationed in the Navy in Jacksonville, so we would shoot over there all the time.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a great town. I mean, I like it. I live at the beach. I don't live in Jacksonville. If I lived in Jacksonville, I would say otherwise. But I live in Atlantic Beach, so it's like a little intercoastal, kind of small community. Lots of stuff to do. So.
Yeah, lots of great food there. We love the restaurants and the fish camps.
Yep.
Yeah, so good.
They're all real good.
So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, you.
I'll introduce you to the crew.
Okay.
I'm Scott. I'm the Clydesdale CrossFitter.
Okay.
And then we have Amy.
Hi there.
We have Kat.
Hello.
And we have Charlie.
Hello.
So we actually just talked to your teammate a couple days ago.
Dex.
Yeah, had a blast with him. That
Yeah,
caused a riot. Lost you there for a second.
Yeah. Let me see if I.
Good. I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
It's cutting out all the time.
I'm at my.
It's usually me, Brooke. So thank you.
Right. I'm at my gym, so sometimes it can. Let me see if I move positions, if it'll work a little bit better. Hang on.
Wow, that wall is awesome.
Ooh, what a cool gym.
Oh yeah. They have like we actually just repainted that whole big mural while we're closed. So.
Who's that mural of back there?
I don't know.
That's a really cool setup.
Yeah. Just
You guys set up on the cheat. Yeah. Is it working any better, or am I still breaking up?
That's
You're
better
good right now.
Yeah.
You just don't move or.
Put your left hand in the air and just hold it there.
I know, right? Create an antenna.
So we're really laid back. We're just gonna have a little conversation, have a good time. I don't know if you talked to Dex since Sunday, but we had a blast with him. What guy?
I haven't talked to him about the podcast itself. We've had a couple other things that as a team we had to talk about and discuss, but no, I'm sure once I talk to him about it a little bit, he's such a fun guy and loves to talk. So I can imagine.
That's a perfect description.
Right.
So first of all, you grew up in Minnesota, right?
I did. Yep.
Yeah. And what was that like? What did you do for fun and activity then?
So I grew up in like super small town, Minnesota. Like my graduating class was the largest one. There was 99 of us. So super, super small school. I would never take like that away and like never wish for anything differently. The community that I grew up in was great. It really allowed for me to, I guess, have some strong roots as far as discipline and, kind of just like a tract on what I wanted to do with, for my future. Sports were a huge thing for me. My dad, I was like daddy's little girl, and he was very much so about having an athletic person in his family. And that just so happened to be me. My brother was more of like computer kind of kid, liked all that stuff. And I was naturally, like, even without my dad pushing me to really go into any sports or anything like that, I just naturally gravitated towards it. A lot of it probably had to do with just like the friends and whatnot. And it was also, it was kind of like all you could do. You were either in sports or you were in dance, or you didn't, you pretty much did one of those two things. So I grew up, my babysitter was basically the swimming pool. I spent my summers there. From 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. Never really did any competitive swimming because it wasn't available at my school, but was just constantly active and always in the water. And then I did a little bit of dance when I was younger. And then I got into, I would say once middle school started, I got into playing, ball sports pretty much. I did softball, I did soccer, I did basketball, traveled all of them, dabbled around in a little bit of cross country, really just to like hang out with my friend more. I was never a good runner. But I then, once I got into high school, was pulled up, well, I guess in 8th grade was pulled up to play on the varsity softball team. They were actually state champions a couple of years in a row. So it was a very good program that we had. And that was primarily the sport that I played. I did do a little bit of soccer and basketball, but softball was my main sport growing up in high school.
Awesome. So I noticed in one of your videos that you have a tattoo on your back.
I do.
I believe it says family.
Yes.
So family is really important to you?
Yes. Yep. Especially now that I don't live, very close to them. I think a lot of people can take that for granted. And we're like two peas in a pod, and we, if we lived next to each other, I know that we'd spend a lot of our days together just, doing stuff. And I don't have that opportunity right now, and may never have the opportunity to do that. So when I do get to see them, I really cherish the times, with that. And my family has always, instilled in me just, I guess, what translates to my life right now too. And just, how I'm goal oriented and, how I go about my life, I guess. It's all really owed to them.
So what led from going to, that's okay. So what led from going from Minnesota to Florida? How did that transition happen?
Yeah, so I was just dating someone who was from my high school, and he came down here. He was in the military. And I kind of was at a point where it was like, I wasn't going to stay small town. My town is so small that you pretty much could plan the rest of your life out once you graduate. It's kind of one of those places, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're gonna, probably work at the bank, and you're gonna marry someone that you grew up with, and then you're gonna have a couple kids, and you're gonna live in the cul-de-sac that you grew up in, or something like that. And I just knew that really wasn't for me. Like, just, and people would tell you that, in my friends, my family, like, no, Brooke she always was off trying to do, her own thing, and I just wanted more, I guess, and there wasn't much available there. And so it was just kind of like I was going to go for a summer trip. And then once I came down here, it was like this whole new, like, oh my God, there's all this other stuff. Like, I think this is more my pace right now. And I just kind of ran my race, and I didn't book a flight back. And my dad was like, "You're not ever coming back." I'm like, so I ended up staying, and then I actually got a position as a personal trainer here, and kind of went into that whole fitness world. And that's I guess really what made me stay was kind of a career path.
Mm.
And when did you find rugby?
When did I find rugby? So during the time that I was down in Florida as a personal trainer, like first kind of starting out, obviously I was doing some of the fitness bodybuilding stuff, and I was just active in the gym, but never really, I mean, I would say that we were more functional fitness oriented gym than we were like old school. Like we weren't a Gold's gym or anything like that. A lot of us personal trainers were more functional fitness bias. So that was great to have that kind of like introduction. And even at the time, I still didn't know what CrossFit was. But I had a personal trainer there that was like, "Hey, we have an and I was like, "Oh, that'd be great to like add into some of this training." Well, I went out and played with the boys and the girls, and they told me I was too aggressive. I got a lot of red cards and a lot of yellow cards. But that's what I mean. I grew up like sliding was legal, and like all that stuff is legal. I just don't think they expected it in like that age group. But I played like I was in college, you know, like that's how I'm going to play. And they were like, "There's actually a women's rugby team that plays Tuesdays and Thursdays at a park like 2 blocks up. You should go try out there." I'm like, "Rugby?" Like, I mean, I've seen it obviously, but I was like, "A women's league?" I'm like, I didn't know that women played really. I was like, "Nah, sure." So I went and tried out, and obviously they wanted me to play once they like saw the background that I had. And kind of like how CrossFit was for me, kind of just walk right in, and I knew it was something for me at the time, and I enjoyed the community aspect of it. I love the people that played the sport. I love the sport itself. It was very demanding, but it was also very rewarding.
And you ended up tearing your ACL playing, we're correct?
I did, yes. One of my last games, I was at the All-South, at an All-South tournament, and it was actually one before some Olympic trials and whatnot that we were set to go try out for, myself and another girl. And first couple minutes into the game, I pop kicked a ball over a couple of the defenders' head, chased after it, made a weird bounce. I turned and tore my right ACL completely.
So let me get straight. You were going to try out for the Olympic team?
Well, we were going to do some Olympic the Olympic trials, like go try out. So there's like specific sections of the United States that so we were the All-South, obviously being from the southeastern area. But then they had, 5 or 6 different other sections of the United States, and they would ask people from these essentially traveling leagues. You were there, you were like their filters to get into that. Obviously, they would do colleges and whatnot as well. But back then, women's rugby was not a huge thing.
That's really cool. That's something I didn't know that you were doing. So that's pretty awesome. So the tearing of the ACL, is that what helped you find CrossFit?
It is. I was told, so my mom works for Mayo Clinic, so I went to the Mayo Clinic. I had, some great advice on what I should do pretty much immediately afterwards. And they will continue to play level 3 contact sports, and at the level that you do play it at, your chances of like re-tearing or tearing your other one are very high. So you can get the surgery done. This is what's going to be your downtime, your rehab, and all of that. Or a lot of times what will happen is scar tissue will reform around the ACL, and a lot of people can go back to, almost normal activity. But we do recommend that you give up, level 3 contact sports. And at that time, it was kind of like at the peak of my career with personal training. So it wasn't just like, you know, I felt like it would have been selfish for me to say, sure, let me have the surgery, take the downtime and do all of that. I would have had to have stepped away from my career a bit to allow for that to happen, for the chance of me. You know, I was already considered kind of one of the older players, being and all of that. I was already considered that. So I just, you know, checked and balanced and weighed my options. And I just decided not to go through with the surgery, do the rehab myself, and kind of walked away from rugby. More, like I said, more as a career choice than anything.
So let's talk about your CrossFit career a little bit. When did you start CrossFit?
So leading right after that, me deciding not to continue playing rugby, I knew there was I was like, I need to find something else, something competitive. Like, I've been a competitor all my life. And someone at the gym recommended, hey, like, we've heard about this thing called CrossFit. There's a local affiliate that's probably 10 miles from the gym here. It's called Blackfin CrossFit. You can go drop in for free. Like, they gave me all their information. It'd be something like up your alley. And I was like, okay, like, sure. So, you know, like, naturally I kind of like Googled some of the videos, and I had seen like the CrossFit fails and all of that before. And, you know, being in a global gym, people are like, oh, look at these idiots, like doing these kind of pull-ups and like walking on their hands and all this stuff. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, I've seen a little bit of it, but I was like, there's no way I can walk on my hands. I can't do that. Like, no. I was strong, just because of my background and being in the gym a little bit. So I was like, I could do some of the barbell stuff, I'm sure. But yeah, walked into the bay doors, and it was, you know, similar to rugby. Like, I just knew it was something for me. And at that stage of my life, the community, like, I was looking for some sort of a similar community that rugby had, and CrossFit had it for me. So I think I was more attracted to the community than, and then thereafter the competitiveness of the sport and the sport itself, then I guess would be what kept me to stay.
Do you remember what your first workout was?
It was Kelly, which is running wall balls. Oh my God, it was horrendous. It was a nightmare. I'm like, and I was such a crazy person when I first started. I was like, oh, this was so bad, but I loved that bad. I asked him if I could come back and do it again, like at the 4:30 class. I went to the 10 o'clock and I was like, can I come back at the 4:30 and do it again? And he was like, no, like, please no.
Oh, so there's something wrong with you. I got it.
I know, yeah, right. He was like, oh God, here we got one of these. We got one, like. But I would say my first year CrossFit, that's what I did. I would come in, do the workout like in the morning time class or the afternoon class, and then I would come back later, and for almost the whole year I did that.
So you're in the last 4 years, you have finished top 25 in the Open all of those 4 years.
Yes.
That is pretty impressive.
Yeah. It was a lot of hard work. The Open was something that scared me so much for so many years. And I thought that it was something that I was never going to be. Being a little bit of a heavier athlete, like, I just kind of always had that thought in the back of my mind, you know, oh, it's lighter weight, it's burpees, it's stuff that I'm not that good at. Like, give me a heavier barbell and longer workouts, and I'm, you know, those are kind of the ones that I'm in it with. So the Open, I always just had this negative thought about it, and I in 2015, I actually decided to be a full-time athlete in 2015, and I missed going to regionals by one spot that year. And I think that year was my transition year of like, well, why are you doing this? And what are you really trying to accomplish with this sport? Are you just doing it to like just make it to regionals, or are you, you know, do you just want to do this as a you know, like a means of a career and kind of like being a coach and somewhat of an athlete, or do you want to go to the CrossFit Games? And I think at that, you know, that 1 year, I was turned down by a grid league team that year. I had just missed qualifying for regionals by 1 spot. So I think it was like, I need to make a decision. And I made that decision of like, you're either going to give it all or you're not going to give it anything. So I transitioned and that I trusted, and I started surrounding myself with people that were better than me, and I trained with them constantly. And I think that was, you know, that was the big change for me to be able to see that those continual placements in the open.
So I saw in one of your videos also where you mentioned that you noticed that when you reduced your volume with your training, that the quality was much better. And I think you also mentioned being back at work. So can you go into that a little bit and explain some of that?
Mm-hmm. So in 2015, like I said, I chose to be, well, you know, like kind of right before that, I chose to be a full-time athlete. I actually became a partner and affiliate. I coached full-time. So my whole life was just CrossFit. Too much. If I were just coaching and just being an athlete, but not having to worry about the affiliate side of it, I think it would have been a little bit different. But having to, you know, answer emails every single day, you know, hundreds of emails, and take phone calls. And anytime anybody walked into the gym, you know, it was my responsibility. And then I did the programming, I did nutrition with people, I coached every single class. And then on top of that, I was trying to train to qualify for the CrossFit Games. And I was doing my own programming. You know, I'd pick and choose some other people's stuff. Like, I'd be like, comp train, like, I'd like this today. Or, you know, I'd see some things from other athletes and I do some of that. But I programmed for myself at the time, and it was too much. Like I never had a turn off from CrossFit, so I think I just burned out real quickly with it. So when I took a step away, I decided to get out of my affiliate. I hired a coach. I actually left that gym altogether and started training at a different location with, like I said, some better athletes that year. And the significant thing that I noticed was that the volume was less. I wasn't training 5 or 6 hours a day. I mean, I was doing 3 sessions, 2 hours a day. A lot of it was weightlifting volume, so it did take some time. But I would metcons nonstop too, like just too much. But I was, in my mind, you had all of these holes. You're not good at muscle ups. You can't walk on your hands. All of the higher skill stuff that just takes time to develop. I didn't have, and I thought that, you know, back then by doing it more often, that I would, you know, get better at it. But, you know, I mean, as most people, it's not about doing it more often. It's also about like the quality of each session. And that's any time that any new CrossFitter asks me anything, I'm like, learn from me. Like I went through the year of doing it completely incorrectly. You know, less is more, and just intensity is key. And you know, what you're doing in those specific sessions, whether they're an 8-minute AMRAP or a 25-minute AMRAP, and you only do it 3 times a week, or you do it 5 times a week, whatever you're doing in those sessions, like make sure that it's of quality, that you're doing quality reps, and that you're doing it with intensity.
Well, that's awesome. So your first year in the games as an individual was 2019.
Yep, last year.
Yeah. And the year of the cuts.
The year of the cuts. Yes, I know. Lucky me. Finally made it.
And so I guess it wasn't great because you just made it through that first day. And then the cuts they took you down to 50 after the first day, correct? Or am I wrong?
So it was like almost cut in half after the first workout. I think it went from the one, I don't know, we had like almost 150 people to, I believe, 75. And then it went from 75 to 50.
And you finished 55th?
And I got 55th. Yes.
Yeah. So were you disappointed with that?
Yeah. I mean, I felt like I was in the best shape of my life going into the games physically. Mentally, obviously, it being my first year, I was a bit nervous. I do have a tendency of being like, I'm definitely a better athlete in my own comfort. Love compete. If I can throw down in my own gym, like, I don't know, like, I think it's just like more of a comfortability of like having your own equipment and, you know, knowing where the clock is and, you know, like just little things like, how far, you know, I know exactly how far the pull-up rig is from where I'm setting my barbell up. You kind of get just like used to like the times of, okay, you probably are going to have like 10 seconds to rest when you walk from here to here. And it's not like this super unknown of like, okay, we're going to brief you, but when you walk out onto the floor, like it's kind of a free for all, which is what the games felt like, unfortunately, this year. Now, having been to other sanctionals and whatnot, they felt different. They were a little bit smaller. They focused a little bit more on the athletes. Like the Rogue Invitational was, for me, was the games. The way that with the workouts, all of that, like that's what I felt like the games should have felt like. And this year, I think a lot of other a lot of other individual athletes felt the same way. It was just, I mean, there were 2 head coaches or head judges on the field at the time of that first workout, you know, with 75 individual athletes. Like it just wasn't enough. Just the difference in judging and all of that also is going to be, you know, any competition you go to, but I just think that it could have been run a little bit differently to hold a better standard. I unfortunately in the first workout got a little bit screwed, and that by no means is the reasoning for me getting 55th in the games, but it had something to do with it. The first workout when you came back at the briefing, they told you that you're going to be assigned a section on the rig. There's going to be 4 ropes there. You don't have a specific rope, but you have this section that you have to be in. So you knew what your judges looked like. You knew the 3 other girls that were going to be in your section with you. And just you needed it when you finished, you needed to run there, and that would be where you would do your rope climbs. But first come, first serve on the rope in the section. So if you wanted to be closer to your barbell, you could pick that one, but you would still have a rope to go off. So we all went out, everybody, the top 75 went out and did the 400-meter run. And when I returned back, all of the ropes were taken in my section. So I just had to stand there and wait until someone did all 3 of their legless rope climbs before I could begin. And at the time, there was, like I said, there was only 2 head judges out there. I did notify one of the judges, but he just raised his hand. So, I mean, at the time, it didn't do anything. He was like, all right, well, I mean, you can use this rope now. But at that time, I was already 3 full legless rope climbs behind everyone else. And I filed an appeal and all of that. And they honestly just kind of said, we're really sorry about your luck. And I think they gave me 20 seconds, maybe 18 seconds, which it didn't matter. Where I finished in the workout, I had I think 90 seconds, and I'm like, well, there's no way I'm going to get 90 seconds, 400-meter run plus the transition of where I was with the barbell all the way down there. I'm like, so I just stood there for 90 seconds. But even so, they were like, well, we'll give you 20 seconds, which they said I think accumulated for run down, which didn't change my score at all. So that can happen to anyone at any given time. There was a lot of stuff like that going on, people stepping on the lines, just stuff that's unfortunate. But I think that they'll learn and hopefully they can have a little bit better setup Obviously not this year, probably with what's going to end up happening. They'll have a really great setup this year for individuals. But hopefully in the coming years, when they're actually in Madison, they can learn from some of that stuff.
So you finished in the Open top 25 4 years in a row. You
Mhm.
mentioned Rogue top 10 finish, which in a stacked field to finish top 10. And then this year you choose to go team.
Yes.
So you seem like you were like just on the cusp of ascending in the individual division, and you make the decision to go team, which caught me off guard anyway.
Yeah, I think it did for a lot of people. But if you look at my past regional, experiences, I was individual team, team. And a goal for me, obviously, growing up playing team sports and even like the rugby part of it, like I've just always enjoyed a little bit more of like having people around and the camaraderie from having, teammates and whatnot. So it was an easy decision for me to do that. And then it was even easier once I actually got to meet these, the people that are on my current team. They are obviously some of the great athletes, but they're even better people. And I just truly enjoy training with them, even though we don't get that we get to do. And I enjoy knowing that like there's people that are always, no matter what, that like they're always going to be supportive of you, and they were. I mean, and I told them like, hey, like given the opportunity, I'm still going to do some individual stuff this year if you guys are fine with that. Like I had qualified for the Mayhem Classic, and I was going to do the Rogue Invitational and a few other individual sanctionals. And then obviously I had already qualified for the games individually, but they knew where my heart lied, that I wanted to be, I wanted to go to the games with them as a team. And I said, well, if given the opportunity and I can accept or decline a team invitation versus my individual, I'm 100% going team. And that's not to say that I may never go back to individual, or do any individual things again. Like I still plan on, like every year I would love to do Rogue, like as an individual. The Mayhem Classic, given that opportunity again, I would go and do that. And a few other select sanctionals probably that highlight more of like a games type individual competition.
Well, how great is it too now with the format that you can actually do that, right? I mean, before with regionals, you would never be able to go as an individual and then jump to a team, within a year. So I think that's awesome.
Right. Yeah. And that is one of the things that I think with the sanctionals, for people like me, because there's a couple other girls. I mean, Andrea Nisler and Taylor Williamson, they both have also qualified individually through the Open, and they, they're team athletes through and through. They have been for quite some time, but they're also like, people would wonder, like, given the opportunity for them to go individual, how great they would be. But I think, where it lies for them probably is in the same, they may have had a team sports background and they just enjoy that a bit more. And they seem to enjoy the teams that they're with and like the people that they're with. You can just tell, like, there's some teams that look absolutely miserable, and then there's other teams that are, smiling and, you can tell they enjoy their training, whether they're together or not. And I think that makes a big difference too.
So how did the four of you guys hook up?
So I met Dex. I was working for Chike, which is a coffee protein company, at the Arnold Classic in 2019. Yeah, 2019, I believe. And it was during the time of the Open, actually. And so I was working, I'd been working for 3 days, and then on Friday we went to Dex was in there at the same time, and he was like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing 19.3 or whatever. It was the squat clean toe to bar one. And that is like, I didn't tell him, but I was like, that is my jam, which I actually got second in the world on it. So yeah, little did he know that it was really my jam. But he's like, yeah, sure. Like Dex kind of just like cool boy, like he knew who I was, but Dex is Dex. Like he's just this big personality, and you know, he expects people to kind of know him, and people do. A lot of people know him for his hair more than like his name. But so he's like, yeah, I'll do it with you. So we start warming up and we do it, and I think we get like 3 or 4 minutes, and he's like, excuse my language, God damn. He's like, I didn't know I was doing this against the best person in the world at this workout. But like middle of the workout, he's like tripping up on double unders, and he was like just completely defeated. And I think I finished probably like 6 minutes ahead of him. And he was like, all right, well, so what are your plans this year? Kind of. He's like, I want to get back into doing a team thing. And I was like, yeah. I kind of have like a little affiliate team in Jacksonville, but I was like, we definitely are missing like guys. Like we have good girls, but I was like, we don't have any strong guys. And he was like, oh, okay, well, like I'd be down. So he's like, let's form a team and like, let's think on it and see who we can get and all this stuff. So we stayed in contact. And he was like, I think I have a girl. I met her at Wadapalooza, and she's friends with friends of mine. Her name's Kelly Baker. And I was like, I think I've heard that name. So I looked her up, and I was like, yeah, I know who she is. And he's like, yeah, she's really good. She's good. She's strong. She has good like endurance background, which you kind of want that female, like weak female going to the games. Like you're going to have an issue probably. And if you don't have someone that's, you know, that can run and swim and bike and do long distance endurance stuff, you're probably not going to have a good time there either. The rest of the stuff you can kind of fill in or improve on in a short time. And then he was like, and my buddy Chandler, and I knew Chandler for the longest time. I was like, well, of course, like that'd be great. But doesn't Chandler want to go individual? And he's like, no, I bet you he'd do team with us. So we got Chandler and Kelly to agree to do the French Throwdown in 2019, just outside of Paris. And so we had everything booked and planned, and then Chandler had something come up with the military. So it was kind of like last minute scramble to find someone else. And Kelly's like, oh, well, I know this guy, Chris. And then Dex was like, oh, I know him too, Christian Harris. And I was like, well, I know who he is, but I've never seen him. He and who's actually now my coach, were at the Mid-Atlantic Challenge qualifier, or at the Mid-Atlantic Challenge. And they were working out at one of the gyms. And I had to do a Granite Games qualifier like the day before the competition, and they thought I was crazy, so they were just making fun of me. And I was like, oh yeah, that was them. I do know who they are. But then, yeah, small world come full circle. Christian was like, I'm down, let's go. And we all met up. I met Kelly at the airport on the way there for like the first time ever. Christian, we met there kind of basically for the first time ever, and we had an absolute blast. We had such a great weekend. We got second, like right behind Invictus, so we were like, man, we're actually kind of good at this fitness stuff together. Maybe we should, make and then it was like, what's, from there, like, what can we do now? So then it just kept the ball rolling. And we did a few other things like training camps and stuff like that. And, yeah, and here we are.
So we talked to Dex, like we were saying earlier this weekend, and we asked him about France.
Uh-huh.
And he couldn't totally remember, but he said, I think it has something to do with the paddleboard and then running and sprinting. And I asked the judge if I had to wait for my partner. So is that the right story that you were thinking of? Okay.
Yeah, so that was the dirt that we'll have to give on him. So, and people will say this, like, so you either had to decide in that workout to run like a 7K with your other partner, but it had to be male, female, or you had to do like 1,000-meter sprint, a paddleboard, a 500-meter paddleboard, longer than 1,000, I think. I think it was like, 1,500 or something like that. And Dex at the time, we knew he wasn't a great swimmer. And I was like, okay, well, like, I mean, have you ever paddleboarded? And he's like, no, not really, but I got this. Like he's just like super confident, which makes you're like, okay, like you got this. Like, yes, okay, you're fine. But he was like, no, I'm not long distance. And I'm like, no, I'm not either. Kelly like runs marathons, and Christian, like he's the endurance guy. So we knew already. So we're like, well, we're just kind of stuck in this place. So I was like, well, I've paddleboarded before. Like I'm fine with it. And I had actually just recently did a training camp with Training Think Tank. And we did like this big day of like stand up paddleboard and all this stuff. So I was like extra confident. Then I was like, I got this. I was like, the run is going to suck. Like, even with it being that short, it's just like really fast for kind of a mid distance. I was like, it's not best. So we went out, and he was, I would say, like, I don't know, 200 meters ahead of me, got in the water, and then I passed him on the paddleboard. And I was like, come on, you got this. Like, grab the back of my board or something. I don't care. Like, you got this. But I was like, you need to be able to catch up to me because you were supposed to run together and like finish together and all this stuff. Well, we didn't do that. We were like, just run. And then at the very end, like, well, I'll either wait for you or you wait for me. But a lot of people did it. So I'm running, and I'm like, he's definitely going to catch up to me. Like, Dex is 3 feet taller than me. He beat me into the water. Well, he doesn't. So we're running along, and I see the finish line, and I'm like, all right, well, I have the timing chips, so I'm just going to run through. So ran through, and Dex was actually kind of like right behind me, but we had some people not very happy that we didn't run together, and he knew them, and oh God. And so now I'm like, what were you doing? Hiding in the bushes? Like, it's this big, long joke about like how Dex is this huge cheater and all this stuff. I'm like, oh Lord, like, no, it was like a 20-second time difference, and we got docked it anyways. So it wasn't a big deal, but we have to make fun of him all the time now and say that, because he was super confident, like, no, I got this, and then I'm like, what is going on with you in the water here?
Yeah, he said he didn't even think he was scooping water while on the paddleboard.
No, I think he had like the opposite end in, and I was like, how you're moving backwards. Like, I'm like, you just use your arms at this point. Like, lay down on your stomach and do like that kind of like Aussie style paddleboard or something, because you're not moving.
So then you guys form that team, and you go on and you become the first games qualifier of the 2020 season in Ireland. So Dex said Ireland was awesome. You guys had a blast there as well. Did you enjoy Ireland?
It was. I did. Ireland was great. It was a little bit cold, but like the event itself, like the people that put it on and the community there, it was so great. And I'm sure a lot of people saw it too, like just even some of the individual athletes and how they interacted with the crowd there and stuff. It was really, really cool. And then obviously like Dublin itself was a very cool thing. To be able to get to travel just in itself is an amazing thing. And especially when it's something that you love to do. But it's even better when it's with like people that you love too. So it was really, really great. And it was just like the perfect weekend, obviously, with the cherry on top of, qualifying and having that happen first, being the first team.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer with what's happened since then that you may not get the chance to carry out that invitation. It's just not looking promising at this moment. But you guys did go to Wodapalooza minus Dex and did well there as well.
Yep, Wodapalooza was good. Filled it in with Tim, and Tim's such a great guy too. Complete opposite of Dex, like just personality-wise, but both equally as great people. And he just plugged into the team really well. He kind of knew coming in, like, who we were and kind of what we were about, and he just blended with us well. Like there's some people that you could probably put in and it would just be like throwing a bee in a glass case or something like that. It just wouldn't fit very well. And luckily for us, Tim just plugged in and kind of like went with the flow, and he had some good recommendations of like what we should do. And he also, it was nice, I think, for him because he was an individual athlete. Like it took some stress off him. We all could just have a fun weekend. We knew we were there to like, hey, we're still like a sponsored team, so we don't want to like completely shit the bed. But like we're here to have fun, and this is also a good training weekend for us, not only as individual athletes but as a team, and then for Tim too, just to have a little bit of a competition there afterwards. He was actually at Filthy 152 and he went as an individual, so it was nice for him, and kind of like all of us having already qualified allow to kind of continue through our off season. A lot of people have to peak for Wadapalooza if they want to show out. And that makes for such a long season. So for us to not have to go through that crazy, like, okay, we're peaking and then we're going back down, we're peaking, we just get through games training and roll right through it was great. And yeah, it was a great weekend. So
now with everything up in the air, what does next season look like? Are you just putting your eggs in that basket now, or are you holding out hope for some kind of team competition?
There's already stuff in the works, and I can't say it. I don't think I'm allowed to, but there are some stuff in the works right now for some sort of a team competition, even if the CrossFit Games don't host them themselves. And that's kind of just through like us team people that have already qualified, or some people that would have expected to qualify had they been able to go to some sanctionals. And I think it'll be put on, obviously, well, if you think of the teams that have qualified, we have, some people that would back us to create some sort of a competition. May it be still some sort of CrossFit Games affiliated stuff? Who knows? It may not be, but as you've seen, kind of the sanctionals go, like you necessarily don't need complete backing from the CrossFit Games to have, the fittest team on earth still crowned. People would still, I think, recognize you if you went and competed against the teams that have already qualified and have in the past qualified and done very well too.
That's incredible news. Thank you for sharing that. This probably won't go out for a little bit, so we may be behind the announcement anyway, but that's really cool to know.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of the people that have already qualified, there's no way they're going to lay down and be like, well, we'll wait till next year. I mean, no. Like,
yeah.
we do this for a living, and we do it to compete. We don't do it to just train in our garages and train in our gyms and whatnot, and then, never really have. So I think we're already kind of ahead of the thought that there isn't going to be a team competition, even though there's so few teams qualified. I just think logistically at Aromas, it would be very tough for them you already have 4 people on a team. Then, if there's any of the social distancing stuff, it just doesn't, I don't know. It doesn't go very well with, I guess, what the guidelines might be at that point. So it's unfortunate because Aromas would be so cool. It'd be like a dream come true to go there and, compete, which I actually potentially may have the opportunity to. I haven't explored that yet. If they do decide to not go through with team, I will be emailing CrossFit and asking if I can retroactively re-accept my individual invite and compete as an individual still. Myself, Taylor, and Andrea all kind of are up in would you guys be on board to kind of petitioning and asking if we could have our individual invites back, because myself and another were top 20 in the world, even without like the shuffle and all of that stuff. So we flat out.
I think you're on to something there. I definitely think you're on to something there. I think if we end up doing an individual thing in Aromas, I think it's absolutely going to be open to those individuals from the open, and probably not even sanctioned winners potentially.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I was thinking. I was like, for them to potentially keep it smaller, they might just say, okay, no sanctionals, no national champions. It is only going to be the top 20 that qualified, which, and then, like I said, lies for me, like, okay, well then I did do that. And myself and Andrea did. And I know we'd love the opportunity to, whether I be in individual shape or not by then, I don't care to be there. I'm going to be training for the games no matter what, whether it's an individual or whether it's a team. So I'm hoping that, maybe I could potentially experience both this year. That would be great too.
So again, so what are you looking at next year at all? Or are you just focusing on what's going to happen this year and then worry about next year when that's all done?
For the future, I've kind of said that I'll be on kind of a 3-year team thing. I've always given the open everything, especially now more so because team's not guaranteed. The only way that you can guarantee yourself is by going through the open and qualifying right then and there. And that's your best opportunity to set yourself up for that. So I'm always going to still try to qualify as an individual. I'm still going to do some individual competitions, some individual sanctionals. But as far as the games goes, I'll if we do end up qualifying, and I'll be going games for, at least the next 3 years. That kind of brings me up to then the masters. And then I can decide whether I want to do individual masters, if I still qualify individually in the open division, if I want to do that, or, if we're still together or whatnot as a team. But I think, that set me up a good time frame, leading me into that masters group. And then I can make, reevaluate and make a decision from there.
So let's finish up with just a little bit of personal stuff. So what do you do for a living?
So I'm the head coach for CrossFit Total Control here in Jax Beach. I do that, and then I do nutrition with some of the clients here. I do some personal training as well, not really on the CrossFit side, but a lot of fitness.
Cool.
Gym coach.
I got to ask you, is the tattoo sleeve,
Mm-hmm.
any inspiration behind that?
Yeah. A lot of people know what a phoenix, what it kind of stands for. And it typically just means that, you've rose from the ashes of your past or of a bad experience in your life. And it's kind of a new you. And for me, I think it was just kind of like a growing phase for me of going through kind of finding out who I was, what I really wanted in life, and the path that I wanted to set myself on. And CrossFit had a lot to do with it. But there was a lot of temptation to kind of like give up, go back to Minnesota and do stuff like that. Just being a young single female in your life. And I think that the easiest thing would have been to just kind of go back home and like go back to what would be safe and whatnot. And I didn't. And I am, at the time that I got the tattoo, was very, very happy with where I was in my life and all that. And I am obviously still currently very happy at where I am with my life. So I think it's just something that reminds me of like what hard work and dedication and perseverance does. And what better way to do that than display it in something, some sort of beautiful artwork.
And did I see in my research that you're engaged?
I am, yes. Yep, my fiance Jimmy and I are going to be getting married in Portugal in August 2021. Yes, I know, going for it. Travel everywhere. He's a big surfer, and his family's from New Jersey. My family's from Minnesota, so we knew we kind of didn't want we should have it in the States. And Florida's not really our home either. It's our home right now, but it's not, home. So I think it was easy for us to kind of say, well, let's just do a destination wedding and kind of make it a big vacation for a lot of people. And we have a lot of our friends that are going to come with us. Our close family is going to be there with us. And then we've invited them to come along and just like do a little pond hop over and go to Italy on our honeymoon with us and do some stuff like that. So it'll be fun.
That's incredible. Congratulations ahead of time. That'll be an amazing wedding, I'm sure.
I'm excited.
Now, Tony Baloney and Abbott won't be able to attend.
I know, my little wiener Tony Baloney. If I can get him over there, I will, because I would love to have him be our little ring bearer. And Abby, I don't think Abby would do very well on that long of a flight. We'd have to tranquilize her or something. Tony would be easiest dog ever. You like hold him upside down like a baby and he'll fall asleep. Like just, yeah. But no, I don't think that we'll end up bringing them over, unfortunately.
Well, that's all the questions I had for you. I'm so appreciative of you taking some time out to spend with us. It was a great conversation. It was great getting to know you. And congratulations on everything you've accomplished so far. And hopefully we'll see even more of that in the future.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for having me, and thank you for taking the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was so great to talk to you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hopefully you guys can talk to some of my other little meat squad people.
Yeah.
They'll tell you some funny stories about me, I'm sure, too. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
We'd love to.
Love to. Well, we'll talk to you soon, Brooke. Thank you so much.
all right, have a great day.
You too.
You too.
Bye.
You too.
So that was a fun interview with Brooke. It's going to be really interesting to see if she can pull off the double of doing both the individual competition and the Mayhem Madness. And speaking of those, big news this week with CrossFit releasing on their page and Dave Castro on his Instagram of what the process is going to be to whittle down the field to hold the games at the ranch. And we kind of speculated some of that, that there were going to be cuts. We thought maybe there might be an online qualifier. That is not happening. It is just straight the top 20 and the sanctional winners from, is it 9 or 10 sanctionals?
I think it's 10.
10.
Yeah.
10
And some of those invites have been rescinded, right? Based on the top 20. So like my girl Fisa Gaffi, who qualified at the Mayhem Classic because Danielle Brandon,
Yes.
I guess was going team, right? Is that
No.
She was.
she just declined her invite, or
So she was right on the cut line with the national champion. She got in
got it
on the cut line, but now that they removed the national champions, she didn't. So now she needed the Mayhem.
Yeah, so they basically totally reset the whole
Leaderboard.
invites and then started back with the open, first top 20 of the open, and then for the sanctionals that did happen, it was a reset. And now because like Kelsey Keel no longer has her invite.
Correct.
Right. Bummer.
Emily Rolfe, she lost hers. A few national champions who are right outside that top 20 lost theirs. And they're just kind of waiting to see what the travel restrictions do. Because some people may rescind theirs because they can't make it to California. So,
Scott, I was laughing because if we go back to the original leaderboard of the Open, your boy Leftris was on there.
My boy Leftris Theophanides, he's back in the top 20.
He's at the top. I think he was third.
He was third in the Open.
He gone.
My
You made
cheating
somebody
doesn't count
happy.
him back in.
Yeah, so we're down to 21 on the men's side, and Rich has officially declined already.
Right.
So you're actually to 22 on the men's side. But as we just talked to Brooke Haas, she's going to try to do both, who she did rescind hers, and now she's accepting it. So that makes things weird because I think Katrin is at 24.
Yeah.
And she may not get in.
Yeah.
And this is all, here I go again, my polypragmatist.
Oh gosh.
This is all assuming that something can actually happen at the ranch, right? I know,
Yes.
Everyone's losing their minds over all of this, and I love the conversation, and it's fun to play it out. I still just don't know how it's going to happen. I heard that California just extended their stay at home like another month or 2 or 5. I don't know.
So on the positive flip side of that, Arizona just announced that they are open for professional sports Saturday.
Well, then they should just have it in Arizona,
There you go.
right?
Yeah,
That
so
would be cool.
I think that's the first state to do that. I'm sure others are going to follow because there's going to be a cash cow for these, like UFC fights, boxing matches, WWE. They're talking about doing like an NBA, NCAA tournament style to crown the champion this year, where you play into a tournament and you have to win the tournament to win it. And that's going to be held at one location. So if you can be the state to get that, that's money to your economy after this big, long, no economy period. So, yeah, I think some states are going to jump in there. So I think that's possible. You know, I wish CrossFit wasn't so ingrained on having it at the ranch, because I do think they could do it in like an Arizona or a Florida or a Texas.
Well,
Yeah.
they may be forced to change their mind. I think their deep desire to hold something, hopefully, won't hamstring them into just being very stubborn about it having to be the ranch. So we'll see.
So speaking of gyms holding something, it was announced on Mayhem's Instagram page and Rich's Instagram page that they will be hosting a team competition called the Mayhem Madness.
Who? I called it.
You did.
Did I
You
call
did.
it? I called
You
it.
did.
So did.
Sorry.
Yep.
Thank you.
I was thinking Rogue, but that's
Yeah.
just because that's where my brain's going being here.
So they are inviting the 9 teams that qualify, because Mayhem didn't have a team competition at their Sanctional. So there's 9, and they're going to open for 3 additional teams to qualify through an online qualifier.
Awesome.
And that will be held in Cookeville at the Mayhem facility around sometime in August. Rory yesterday on the Mayhem Madness feed on YouTube said that he's actually responsible for all the media for that. And he said that something will be coming very, very soon this week on the details of the Mayhem Madness. So that's pretty cool. Maybe Kat and I can go back down and judge.
I would love to. That would be super cool.
Hey, I'll check my schedule. Maybe I can just, ride along with you guys.
Yeah.
Clydesdale
Turns out I'm not
CrossFitter
working.
road trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie's gonna be staying at home with his 17 kids and wiping poop off the
We're
ceiling.
going to pull up in a black van with scully caps on
Yeah.
and just kidnap them and take off.
I'll give
Since
you mine.
Kat's a pro now.
Yeah. I'm good at it. Yeah. Almost.
So the last thing we want to talk about, any update on the
I'm going to save it. It's a long story. We'll save it for the weekend.
okay. So the last thing I wanted to end with, that's a teaser. You got to tune in next week.
Yep.
And we have a really cool interview coming out Monday, so you need to tune in for that. But the last thing I wanted to say is I was watching Tommy and Sean yesterday, their podium picks, and a little like pat on the back to us. They did their top 3 regional moments. 3 of the 6, the stories were told by the people involved on our podcasts.
Yep.
So that's pretty freaking cool.
How do you think they're getting all their material?
I know.
Oh.
So yeah, the Spieler making the games his last year. Fouché and the boot were on both of theirs. So actually there was only 5 because they both picked that one.
Yeah.
So 3 of the 5. And Con Porter's comeback win at his
2016.
Yep.
Settle down.
Yeah, calm down.
Sorry.
Deep breath. So yeah, pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, very.
Yeah, we're setting the bar for Tommy and Sean.
Kind of a big deal.
So if you want to check those out, they're past episodes. And we're going to cut it short this week. So if you like what you hear, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Hit that notifier. Leave us a review. Leave us a comment. Do all those things. We really appreciate you. We appreciate your interest in this podcast. And we want to bring you the content you want. So please leave us a comment and keep hitting those subscribe button because we keep growing every episode. And that's been awesome. So we're on YouTube. We're on all the podcast platforms. And we'll see you next time on the Clydesdale CrossFitter and Friends.
Bye.
See ya.